Good night again. Today is the second day of our book narration. We are reading Power and Politics in Project Management by Jeffrey K. Pinto. Yesterday, we were able to complete first 22 pages or of chapter 1. Chapter 1 could not be concluded. We will try today to not only complete chapter 1 but also we'll read through chapter 2 for quite some time. So we have got one complete hour. We can do that. I had analyzed the situation which we read yesterday. At the end of the day, I did tell you how old this book is and which are the things which have changed so far. But anyways, this is, a good knowledge base which you can start with. Anyways, the topic of power and politics have never been so elaborately touched upon by anyone, though you won't be able to see that in first chapter or even the second chapter, but from third chapter onwards, you will start noticing the power and politics things coming up. So let me move on to page 22, as if we can start reading from there. This is page 22, and we were at the very last paragraph. How are project teams structured and staffed? From here we are starting. Okay. One of the most intriguing and challenging aspects of project management in the relationship of the project team to the rest of the parent organization, with the exception of companies that have matrix or project structures, the majority of organizations using project management techniques employ some form of a standard functional structure. As you can see in figure 1.3, it is a simplified functional organizational design headed by a president, and then he has got other sections under him, departments under him, production, finance, R&D, and marketing. So figure 1.3 shows within the classical functional structure, departments are organized in accordance with roles: marketing, finance, R&D, production, and so forth. Most activities and operation occur within the functional groupings. Further, these functional duties are often ongoing and act as necessary parts of organization's activities. For example, the manager of new business development within the marketing department of a firm doing business with the federal government would be concerned with determining what programs the company will bid, what price it can offer, and the sort of product attributes it can reasonably deliver as part of these bids. In essence, no matter what program the company is bidding on, this activity becomes the manager's full-time job. When project teams are added to an organization, structural rules change dramatically. Figure 1.4, which is on the next page, let me show you. Yeah, this one. So you can see here that people from different departments are accessing the same resource, right? Project A is getting his resources from production and finance and R&D and marketing, and same is true for project B. That means these projects are getting resources from their functional departments. So this demonstrates the same simplified functional structure in which project teams have been overlaid. Note the inclusion of the dotted lines from the functional departments of finance, R&D, marketing, and production. The implication of these lines is that when project teams are formed in most organizations that possess functional structures, they are staffed on an ad hoc basis from members of the various departments. Personnel are assigned to project teams through one of several ways. Their services are expressly requested by a project manager who values their competence. They are exiled to the project team by a functional boss who is dissatisfied with their work, and they are assigned because they are available. The key, however, is these assignments, like the projects themselves, are temporary. Personnel who staff the vast majority of project teams serve on those teams while maintaining link back to the functional department. In fact, it is quite common for these individuals to split their time between the project and the functional duties. Not surprisingly, this arrangement can lead to a great deal of internal conflict within the project team, as each person seeks to create a workable balance between the competing demands of direct supervisors and project team supervisors. The temporary nature of projects, coupled with the very real limitations on the power and discretion most project managers have, this constitutes the core challenge of managing projects effectively. Table 1.1 gives a comparative breakdown of some important distinctions between project-based work and more common department activities. Let me show you the table first. Just have a look at it. It is clear the issues that characterize projects as distinct from department work also illustrate the added complexity and difficulties they create for project managers. For example, within a department, it is common to find people with a more homogeneous background. That is, the finance department is staffed with finance people. The marketing department is made up of marketeers, and so on. On the other hand, most projects are staffed with special cross-functional teams. These teams are composed of representatives from all relevant departments, and each brings his or her own attitudes, timeframes, learning, past experiences, and biases to the team. Creating a cohesive and potent team out of this level of heterogeneity presents a challenge for even most seasoned and skilled project managers. Likewise, functional activities are intended to reinforce the organizational status quo. The standard operating procedures that are clearly documented in most companies, project management work is different. Figure 1.4 shows, which we have seen on the previous page, this figure shows project teams operate at the periphery of the organization, pulling human, technical, and monetary resources away from the functional areas for their own needs. Rarely are manuals written on how these project teams are expected to operate. Rather, such much of the project management involves violating such sacred rules as the manner in which members of different functional departments are expected to communicate, the way additional resources are secured, interaction with clients by all members of the project team, and so forth. It is in violating these standard operating procedures that project teams are most effective, operating in a flexible and responsive manner to a variety of internal and external client demands. As one continues to explore the nature of project management, it becomes increasingly clear that power and politics play a central role in the successful functioning of a project manager. The balance of this book will lay out ways to understand and deal with politics, including its use in some of the project management's most important activities like conflict resolution and negotiation. That ends chapter 1. So far, what we have studied in chapter 1, I'll just give you a quick overview. We have basically, after having had a little example of Tim and Ed, where the power and politics was highlighted in an office environment, Jeffrey Pinto started off with the introduction to some important terms and concepts, which included the project. And in project, he described project under 4 headings: finite budget and schedule constraints, complex and interrelated activities, clearly defined objectives, and uniqueness. Then he moved on with the definition of the project management, and then he talked about the project life cycle. In project life cycle, he talked about the stages within the life cycle of conceptualization, planning, execution, and termination. And today we started off with the how are the project teams structured and staffed, and that talks about different organizational structures, specifically working within a functional structure. And here we also saw the differences between department and project management resources. So this was about chapter 1. Chapter 2 is about the stakeholder analysis and project management. As you might have noticed in chapter 1, Jeffrey Pinto had suggested about the triple constraint that an additional constraint be added of the customer or the stakeholder. Although practically the situation is very different, because the fourth constraint which was actually added in project management was not of stakeholder but was of quality, and later on they added risk and resources and so many others, and naturally stakeholder ultimately also came to light. So important was it that PMBOK 6th edition, rather it was not only 6th edition, since 5th edition, it has been more than a decade now, that PMI has recognized stakeholder management as a separate knowledge area. And much earlier in 98, Jeffrey Pinto had already indicated about importance of stakeholders and project management. So you see, these guys have really worked on research and they have insight into the matters. So let us start chapter number 2. Title is Stakeholder Analysis and Project Management. No manager makes decisions exclusive of consideration of how those decisions will affect external groups. One way to understand the relationship of project managers and their projects vis-a-vis the rest of the organization is through employing stakeholder analysis. As a method for developing political acumen, stakeholder analysis is a useful tool for demonstrating some of the seemingly unresolvable conflicts that occur through planned creation and introduction of any new project. A project stakeholder are individuals or organizations that are involved in or may be affected by project activities. Consequently, when a company makes strategic decisions, it often will have major implications for a number of stakeholder groups: environmental watchdog groups, stockholders, government regulatory bodies, and others. Stakeholders can impact on and are impacted by organizational actions to varying degrees. In some cases, a corporation must take serious heed of the potential influence wielded by some stakeholder groups. In other situations, a stakeholder group may have relatively little power to influence a company's activities. The process of stakeholder analysis is helpful to the degree that it compels firms to acknowledge the potentially wide-ranging effects its actions can have, both intended and unintended, on various stakeholder groups. For example, the strategic decision to close an unproductive manufacturing facility may make good business sense in terms of cost versus benefit. However, the decision to close the plant has the potential to unleash a torrent of stakeholder complaints, including protests from local juniors, workers, community leaders in town, affected by the closing, political and legal challenges, environmental concerns, and so forth. The prudent company will often consider the impact of stakeholder reaction as it weighs the sum total of likely effects from strategic decisions. Just as stakeholder analysis is instructive for understanding the impact of major stakeholder strategic decisions, we can also use stakeholder analysis for a discussion for project management. When discussing the role of politics within the project environment, there is also real concern for the impact various project stakeholders can have on the project development process. This relationship is essentially reciprocal in that the project team's activities can also impact the external stakeholder groups. For example, the project's clients as a group once committed to a new project development have an active stake in that project being completed on time and living up to its performance capability claims. The client stakeholder group can impact project team operations in many ways, the most common of which are agitating for faster development, working closely with a team to ease project startup problems, and influencing top management in the parent organization to continue supporting the project. The project team, in turn, can reciprocate this support by closely cooperating with the client and easing the transfer of the project to its intended user groups. As illustrated in figure 2.1, which we saw in the previous diagram, the key point for project managers is that in addition to considering all the managerial activities involved in project development, they need to be aware of the ways in which attaining the project's goals can impact a host of external stakeholders outside their authority. Further, project managers must develop an appreciation for ways in which these stakeholder groups, some of which have considerable power and influence, can affect viability of their projects. For example, there is an old saying in project management, never get the accountant mad. The obvious logic behind this dictum is that the accountants can make the project manager's life easy or difficult depending upon how closely they choose to monitor and control project expenditures. This chapter explores the concept of stakeholder analysis as it forms a backdrop for project political behavior. Stakeholders, while having varying levels of power and influence over the project, nevertheless have the potential to exert a number of significant demands on project managers and their teams. The problem is compounded by the fact that the nature of these various demands quite often places them in direct conflict with each other. In responding to the concerns of one stakeholder, project managers often unwittingly find themselves having offended or angered another stakeholder with an entirely different agenda and set of expectations. Challenge for project managers is to acquire the political skills to balance these various demands and to maintain supportive and constructive relationships with each important stakeholder group. Further, this chapter explores a strategy for identifying and specifically targeting each relevant stakeholder group. Identifying project stakeholders. In identifying project stakeholders, we must be as comprehensive as possible. Part of that process is looking beyond the project organization's internal environment to determine which external stakeholder groups can impact our operation and the degree to which they are able to influence the project's implementation. Internal stakeholders are a vital component in any stakeholder analysis. Their impact is usually felt in positive ways, that is, while serving as limiting and controlling influences, most internal stakeholders want to see the project developed successfully. On the other hand, many external stakeholder groups operate in manners that are hostile to the project development. Consider, for example, the case of a European city seeking to upgrade its subway system, adding new lines and improving facilities. There is a strong potential for those interested in preserving antiquities to actively resist the completion of the project if they perceive that tunnel digging could destroy valuable artifacts. Cleland refers to these types of external stakeholders as intervener groups and demonstrate that they have the potential to pose a major threat to the successful completion of projects. Among the set of project stakeholders that project managers must consider are internal and external. Internal, top management, accountant, other functional managers, and project team members. And external, clients, competitors, suppliers, and environmental, political, consumer, and other intervener groups. Consider the demands that the stakeholder group commonly place on a project manager. Top management, as a single entity, is probably too simplistic a classification for this stakeholder group. Within top management, there are differing degrees of enthusiasm for the commitment of the development of a particular project. Likewise, environmental intervener groups are likely to be composed of a number of different factions with their own agendas and priorities. In other words, a good deal of conflict and differences of opinion will be discovered within any generalized group. Nevertheless, this approach is useful because it demonstrates the inherent nature of the conflict and other pressures arising from project development as it exists between stakeholder groups and within groups. Top management. The top management group, the top management group in most organizations hold tremendous power and control over project managers and is the position to regulate their freedom of action. Top management authorizes the development of the project from giving the initial go decision, sanctioning additional resource transfers as needed by the project team, to supporting and protecting the project managers and other team members from their organizational pressures. The top management group has as some of its key concerns the requirement that the project be timely. The project needs to be out the door on schedule, cost efficient, and be completed with minimal disruption to the rest of the organization. In the case of significant projects likely to consume a large portion of an organization's capital budget, there is a strong potential for top management to be split in their support. Project managers have to find ways to not only placate the concerns of top management, but more important, to isolate members of the top management group who have the greatest potential impact on the ongoing viability of the project. Who are the project's advocates? Who are its opponents? Is there a strategy to control and detrimental effects that top management opponents may have on my ability to successfully conclude the project? Is there support of friendly members of the top management team to serve as champions or advocates? These are some of the important questions canny project managers must consider at the advent of a project in evaluating relations with the top management team. Accountant. The accountant's raison d'etre is maintaining cost efficiency from the project team. Accountants support and actively monitor project budget and as such are often perceived as the enemy of project managers. This perception, while common is wrong-minded. Accountants perform an important administrative service for the project manager and team is tracking costs and expenditures. Savvy project managers should work to make an ally of accountants rather than assume that they serve in adversarial capacities. Functional managers. The functional managers who occupy line positions in the traditional chain of command represent an important stakeholder group that project managers must recognize. Most projects are staffed by individuals who are essentially on loan from other departments, from their departments. In many cases, project team members are only part-time appointments to the team because their functional managers expect 20 hours per week in performing their functional responsibility. This situation can create confusion and seriously divide loyalties among team members, particularly if their performance evaluation is conducted by the functional manager rather than the project manager. For survival, team members are likely to maintain closer alliances to their functional group rather than to the project team. Project managers need to appreciate the power of an organization's functional manager as a stakeholder group. Functional managers, like the accountants, are not usually out to actively torpedo project development. Rather, they have loyalty to their own functional roles operating within the traditional organizational hierarchy. Then project team members. That project team obviously has a tremendous stake in the project's outcome. Although they may have a divided sense of loyalty between the project and their functional groups, in many instances, these team members volunteered to serve on the project and are receiving challenging work assignments and opportunities for growth that will motivate them to perform effectively. Just as top management and the accountants have their priorities, that project team's concerns focus on the need to get the project right. Hence, they desire as much time as a project manager can secure for them. Top management seeks deadlines. Project teams prefer to avoid them. Further, the project team wants the client to lock in to project specifications as early as possible. It is much easier to project team members to operate if they are reasonably sure the client will not be changing specs nor asking for new features or additions to the project after it begins. Clients. Clients are concerned with receiving the product of the project as quickly as possible, and if costs are not passed on to them, they are not overly interested in the expense of the project development. On the other hand, they went to make suggestions and request alterations in the project features, operating characteristics for as long as the project manager and team are willing to listen. Clients feel with justification that a project is only as good as it is acceptable and is usable by them. As a result, they demand flexibility and willingness from the project team to be amenable to specification changes. Competitors. Competitors can be an important stakeholder if they are materially affected by the successful implementation of a new product. Should a rival company, for example, bring a new product to marketplace, the project team's parent organization could be forced to alter, delay, or even abandon its project. In assessing competitors as a project stakeholder group, project managers seek to uncover what information is available concerning the status of potential rival projects being developed within competing firms. Further, the lessons learned by competitors can be an important, useful source of information for a project manager who is initiating a small project in another company. If a number of severe problems are caused over occur during the first organization, that information valuable insight to the other project organization in terms of what activities are steps in its own situation. Suppliers. Suppliers is any group providing raw material or other resources the project team needs to complete the project. If the project requires suppliers externally used components, it is important for the project manager to take every step possible to ensure steady deliveries. In large scale construction projects, for example, project managers must face and satisfy an enormous number of supplier demands. Companies that routinely in materials for projects have to consider vendors as important stakeholders. Part of the project manager's job of project is to make certain the project team will continue to have the raw material resources to continue project development. Then we have intervener groups. Any environmental, political, social, community activists, consumer group, and federal, state, and local regulators that can have a positive or negative effect on a project's development and successful launch are intervener groups. That is, they have the capacity to intervene, including the judicial system, in a project's development and force their concerns to be included in the equation for project implementation. There are many examples of intervener groups curtailing major construction projects. Okay, particularly nuclear power plant construction. Prudent project managers need to make an assessment of the nature of their projects and the likelihood that one intervener group or another may make an effort to impose its will on the development process. Now the question is how to manage these stakeholders. Managing stakeholders. The stakeholder management process consists of planning, organizing, directing, motivating, and controlling the resources necessary to deal with the various internal and external stakeholder groups. Figure 2.2 is on the next page. I'll just show you. Here you can see, as he has said here, identify stakeholder, gather information on stakeholder, identify stakeholder mission, determine stakeholder strengths and weaknesses, identify stakeholder strategy, predict stakeholder behavior, implement stakeholder management strategy. You see, he has first identified the stakeholders, and ultimately he developed a complete stakeholder management strategy out of it. So the steps were, and who is doing it all? Project management team is doing it. What they did, identified the stakeholder and then collected data from them. Then identified what the stakeholder wants, needs and expectations of the stakeholder, identify stakeholder mission. Then determine the strengths and weaknesses of the stakeholder, and then identify stakeholder strategy. This is the individual strategy you will be identifying each of the stakeholders, because different stakeholders have to be dealt with in a different way. And then predict the stakeholder behavior as a response to that strategy, and ultimately jot it all down into one stakeholder management strategy for all the stakeholders. This is how project management, project stakeholder management process would go. Coming back to where we were. So figure 2.2, as I have shown you, shows a model suggested by Cleland illustrating the nature of the management process within the framework of stakeholder analysis and management. Cleland suggests these various stakeholder management functions are interlocked and repetitive. That is, this cycle is recurring. Identifying and adapting to stakeholder threats allows development of plans to better manage and challenge they pose. In the process of developing and implementing these plans, new stakeholders whose demands must also be considered are likely to be uncovered. And environmental changes are the project enters a new stage of its life cycle, it may be necessary to cycle through the management model again to verify that the original management strategies are still effective. If, on the other hand, the new circumstances make it necessary to strategies, project manager must work through this stakeholder management model anew to update the relevant information. Developing a political management strategy. Political management strategy. In acknowledging the importance of stakeholder group, project managers need to proactively manage the political nature of these groups' concerns. Block 7 offers a useful framework of the political process applicable to stakeholder management. Block suggests 6 steps prudent project managers should follow. Assess the environment, identify the goals of the principal actors, assess your own capabilities, define the problem, develop solutions, and test and refine the solutions. So taking them one by one, assess the environment, the very first step. This dictum implies that project managers must realistically determine the likely operating environment for administering the project. Is the project relatively low-key and not likely to attract attention, or is it quite significant? A large computer manufacturer recently undertook to develop a new line of mainframe computers and storage units that could potentially lead to great profits or serious losses. In that environment, the manufacturer took great care to first determine the need for such a product line by conducting market research with corporate consumers. Let me see, I think you can't see the slides. Let me take you back to where we are. Okay, this is the page where we were, and let me project it to the, yeah. Okay, here we are. Okay. The result was a tremendous commercial success. Likewise, one of the reasons the Ford Taurus was so popular was Ford's willingness to create project teams that included consumers to more accurately assess their needs prior to project development. You see, from a political perspective, one important component of assessing the environment is to ask some central questions. Is this project politically sensitive? That is, will it threaten the organization's status quo or the power balance of any important stakeholder groups? And what steps would begin to alleviate some of these groups' concerns. Prudent project management demands an understanding that not all internal stakeholders equally perceive the project as important for the organization, nor do all the external stakeholders hold the same positive or at worst benign attitudes to the project's introduction. Identify the goals of the principal actors. As a first step in fashioning a political strategy to diffuse negative reaction, project managers should attempt to paint an accurate portrait of the stakeholder concerned, a portrait that is predicated and on honest assessment, not self-deception. Fisher and Uri have noted that the positions various parties adopt is almost invariably based on need. What then are the needs of such significant stakeholder group regarding the project? Are their needs in line with those of the organization, or are they more parochial, focusing on protecting turf or maintaining the status quo? Project managers must also look for hidden agendas in goal assessment. Frame 9 has argued that all departments and stakeholders groups exert a set of overt goals that are relevant but often illusionary. In their haste to satisfy these overt or espoused goals, a common mistake of untrained or novice project manager is accepting these goals on face value without delving into the needs that drive them. In addition to probing the overt goals and concerns of various stakeholders, project managers must look for hidden agendas and other sources of constraint on implementation success. Consider, for example, a project in a large manufacturing company to develop a comprehensive project management scheduling system. The project manager in charge of the installation approached each department had and believed he had secured their willingness to participate in creating a centrally located scheduling system within the project management division. Problems developed quickly, however, because the MIS department staff, despite their public professions of support, began using every mean possible to sabotage the implementation of the system. What was their concern? The belief that a computer generated source of information anywhere outside their own department threatened their position as a sole disseminator of information. You see, then let's assess your own capabilities. What do we do well? What, if we are honest, are potential blind spots? Do we have the political savvy and a strong enough bargaining position to gain support from each of the stakeholder groups? If not, do we have connections to someone who can? Each of these questions is an example of the importance of understanding our own capacities and capabilities. Self-deception is one of the most pernicious causes of career destruction. And deceiving ourselves as to our capabilities, needs, and weak points, anything that can serve as a blind spot can also lead to the failure of the project. Not everyone has the contacts to upper management that may be necessary for ensuring a steady flow of support and resources. If one honestly determines the political acumen is not a personal strength, the obvious solution is to find someone with that characteristic to help. Robert Burns once noted, "Oh, wad some power, the gifty give us to see ourselves is as either see us." Each of us, each of us needs to seek as far as we are able. The power of the gifty is developing our political skills. Define the problem. After assessing the overall environment, including the specifics of the principal players and our own capabilities, we can begin to fairly define existing, likely, and potential problems. As is true in any project work, define, define clearly defined goals are needed before beginning the task. If circumstances surrounding the project create uncertainties about the amount of labor a project will require, it's likely there will be problems between accountant and the project team. Or when working in a delicate environmental area, conflict between outside intervener groups, the client and the project team is almost assured. These sorts of issues and the role of each stakeholder need to be assessed before developing a strategy to manage their interests. Develop solutions. These are two important points to note that about this step. First, developing solutions means precisely that creating an action plan to address the needs of the various stakeholder groups in relation to other stakeholder groups. This is a stage where the project manager, together with the team, seeks to manage the political process. What will work in dealing with top management? In implementing the strategy, what reaction is likely from the accountant, the client, the project team? Asking these questions helps the project manager develop solutions that acknowledge the interrelationships of each of the relevant stakeholder groups. Second, do the political homework first prior to developing solutions. Note the point stage 5 when this step is introduced. Too often, project managers fall into the trap of attempting to manage a process with fragmentary or inadequate information. The philosophy of ready, fire, aim seems to permeate many of our approaches to stakeholder management. The result of such an attitude is one of the perpetual firefighting during which the project manager operates like a pendulum, resolving one crisis after another. These project managers share one characteristic: they never reach a goal. The process of putting out one file creates a new configuration. Its solution sparks yet another blaze. The bottom line is managing stakeholders to create and maintain multiple strategies that provide project manager maximum flexibility. The more these strategies are refined and used as appropriate, rather than relying on one approach regardless of circumstances, the better the chances of creating and managing constructive relations with project stakeholders. Test and refine solution. Testing solutions implies acknowledging that the project manager and the team are operating with imperfect information. We assume stakeholders will react to certain initiatives in predictable ways. Obviously, such assumptions are often erroneous. In testing and refining solutions, the project manager and the team must realize that solution implementation is an iterative process. We make our best guesses, test for stakeholder reaction, and reshape our strategies accordingly. Many preconceived notions about the needs and biases of various stakeholder groups must be refined as well. In some cases, our assessments are accurate. At other times, our suppositions may have been dangerously naive or disingenuous. Nevertheless, this final step in the stakeholder management process forces the project manager to perform a critical self-assessment. It requires the flexibility to make accurate diagnosis and appropriate mid-course corrections. The 6 steps are an important method for assessing the role stakeholders play in successful project implementation. Each allows project managers to approach political stakeholder management as they would any other problem, recognizing it as a multivariate problem as various stakeholders interact with the project and with each other. Solutions to political management using this methodology are richer, more comprehensive, and more accurate in assessing the project stakeholders' concern and the project manager's capabilities. Next main heading is stakeholder conflict. In developing a stakeholder analysis and political management strategy, the essential conflict in project development and implementation becomes clear. For example, assume a project has undertaken in a company to implement a new information system. There are 4 identifiable stakeholder groups: top management, accountant, the client, and the manager's own implementation team. Top management has given the initial go-ahead to acquire and install the system. Likewise, the accountant provides the cost control and support for the implementation effort, ensuring the budgets are maintained and project costs are near projected levels. The clients are obvious stakeholders as intended users of the new system, assuming an implementation team is working to put the information system online. This team itself is a stakeholder in the implementation if they are being evaluated for their efforts. The nature of the conflict among stakeholder groups is illustrated by focusing on three criteria by which the implementation project effort will be evaluated: schedule, budget performance, and system performance specifications. Schedule is the projected time to complete the installation and get the system online. Budget performance refers to the implementation team's adherence to initial projections for the information system implementation. System performance specifications involves the assessment that the project is up and running, plus performing the range of tasks for which it was acquired. Certainly, additional evaluative criteria can and should be employed. These three success measures, however, demonstrate the nature of the underlying conflict in project implementation. You can see figure 2.3 on top of the page. It shows 4 identified stakeholders and the 3 success criteria that have just been described. So, our identified stakeholders are top management, accountant, client, and implementation team, and our 3 success criteria are cost, schedule, and performance. The arrows show the emphasis placed on each of these criteria by the stakeholders. Consider the case of the stakeholder preferences and the differences between clients and the implementation team. It is obvious that in terms of evaluation criteria such as schedule and budget, there are significant differences in attitude. The clients want the system delivered as soon as possible at the lowest possible cost. Just look at the client, right? Client wants less cost, less time, and high performance. On the other hand, the implementation team would like larger budgets, more time, and low performance. The importance of performance specifications will vary with stakeholder group. Clients want the opportunity to alter the system, customize it, or add as many technical capabilities as possible. The implementation team is more comfortable with simple system that has few technical surprises, less likely to have long debugging procedures, and is not changed once it has been acquired. So this figure 2.3 represents a compelling portrait of the underlying conflict of most project implementation efforts. It also illustrates one inescapable conclusion: to rationalize and resolve the diverse goals and priorities of various stakeholders, a considerable amount of bargaining and negotiation is called for. Bargaining and negotiation are two of the primary methods of resolving conflict in organizational politics. Clearly, political behavior is required for successful implementation effort. A successful project manager is not one who will satisfy all stakeholder parties. Implementation success is instead predicted in the project manager's ability to successfully bargain and negotiate with various stakeholders to maintain a balance between their needs and the realities of the project. Project implementation is a process that depends on the project manager's clever and effective exercise of political skills and recognizing, as in figure 2.3 shows, it is not possible to keep every stakeholder happy. When the client is happy with the number of specification changes to the project manager is willing to make, the team is likely to be upset by the manager's unwillingness to freeze specifications. Likewise, when the team is satisfied with the amount of time the project manager has scheduled for the development process, the manager is likely to hear complaints from the top management about lagging schedule. As a result, rather than seek general happiness from each stakeholder group, the true goal of project managers should be to keep everyone minimally annoyed. To keep everyone minimally annoyed. If everyone is minimally upset with the project manager's handling of various components of the project, time, budget, and specification, it is likely an effective balance among the various competing demands has been found. Another aspect of this balance is that not all stakeholders have equal priority. Figure 2.3 makes no distinction about primacy of goals amongst groups. In reality, modern project management recognizes the client as the final determinant of project success and is almost always the most important stakeholder. Consequently, in balancing stakeholder requirements, project manager must consider the question of trade-offs amongst the various groups. It is possible, for example, to give the client additional specification changes even at the risk of offending the accountant, if in the project manager's opinion such concessions will lead to a strong long-term relationship. In this instance, the project manager may be willing to anger the accountant in the interest of the future work. This importance should somehow be attached to each of the clients when making trade-off decisions. Our goal is to take these importance weights into account while seeking to minimize weighted dissatisfaction. Summary of this chapter: the management of project stakeholders represents a political challenge most project managers are only now beginning to acknowledge. Part of the reason for this is that little is known about the nature of the various project stakeholders, who they are, what their separate agendas are, and how to understand the nature of project stakeholders trade-offs. This chapter presents a framework for understanding some of the best known project stakeholder groups, arguing that the stakeholder management process is cyclic, requiring the project managers continually update and reassess the nature of the stakeholder groups and their potential impact on the project. It also suggests a methodology for more comprehensive management of stakeholders as a political change, and offers a model illustrating the compelling nature of project stakeholder trade-offs. Different stakeholder groups have different priorities which project managers must acknowledge. Behind this is the tacit understanding that it is manifestly impossible to maximize satisfaction levels amongst all stakeholders. Insightful project manager must find a delicate balance of trade-off, seeking to justify all groups only to the degree possible. This ends chapter number 2. And because we have only last 5 minutes left, I would rather like to have general chit chat on this chapter, as if we can understand what is left. And from tomorrow, we would be starting chapter 3. Yes, please. I am open for questions or anything, and I can emphasize on certain points, whatever you would feel like. Yes, please. Ji, who wants to talk? Please raise hand, because there is a lot of background. I would like to put on the mic of only that person who wants to speak. You can raise your hand if you want to talk. Anything, Naveed? हाफिज हसन इकबाल, मुंतजर, कोई बात, कोई मसला? जी हाफिज जी, बोलिए।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम जनाब
जी, वालेकुम सलाम जी। मुझे सुन सकते हैं सब?
जी बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
जी। सबसे पहले तो मैं अप्रिशिएट करना चाहूँगा, बहुत ज़बरदस्त लेक्चर था। और मैंने थोड़ा बहुत स्टडी पहले अपने कोर्स में किया स्टेक होल्डर मैनेजमेंट को, लेकिन जितने अच्छे तरीके से यहाँ एक्सप्लेन किया गया वो, और जितने प्रैक्टिकल वे में किया गया, मेरा ख्याल वो आमतौर पे जो यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में या वैसे इतना नहीं अच्छे तरीके से किया जाता। और पॉलिटिक्स के मुतालिक मैं ज़रूर जानना चाहूँगा कि पॉलिटिक्स को सीखने के लिए और क्या चीज़ है, किस तरह की रीडिंग या वो क्या तरीके कार है जिससे हम, जाहिर है इट्स नॉट आवर फील्ड।
सर, फील्ड आपका है ये, ये हर किसी का फील्ड है।
सही
आप जब अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम कर रहे
सही
होते हैं, एक बुली आ जाता है बीच में, एक सीनियर या जूनियर है या इवन आपका पीयर भी होगा, बुली आ जाता है, आपको काम
बिल्कुल
नहीं
सही
करने देता, रास्ते में रोड़े अटकाता है, आपके अपोनेंट्स क्रिएट हो जाते हैं। वो जो मतलब ऐसे स्टेक होल्डर ग्रुप्स हैं जो आपकी कामयाबी से खुश नहीं होते, वो आपके काम में
बिल्कुल
कोई
सही
रफ्तार है। अब पॉलिटिक्स ये है कि आप किस तरह से अपना रास्ता निकालेंगे, अपने दुश्मनों को भी अपना साथी कैसे बनाएंगे या उनसे अपना मतलब कैसे निकालेंगे। दिस इज ऑल पॉलिटिक्स इज ऑल अबाउट। पॉलिटिक्स तो होगी, प्रॉब्लम तो होगी, इंसानों के साथ डील कर रहे हैं, और जितने ज्यादा लोगों के साथ डीलिंग होगी, हर चीज आपको पीस ऑफ केक की तरह तो नहीं मिलने लगी। तो आपको थोड़ा बहुत पॉलिटिकल एक्विपमेंट होना चाहिए। गॉट इट?
जी बिल्कुल मेरा हाँ जी मेरा क्वेश्चन यही था कि इसको मैं इम्प्रूव कैसे कर सकता हूँ, मुझे किन लाइंस पे काम करने की जरूरत है।
सर देखें, एक तो सबसे बड़ी बात ये होती है कि लोगों से डिस्कस करने से ये बहुत से स्किल जो हमारे पास नहीं होते, वो कम से कम हमें समझ आने शुरू हो जाते हैं। और ये इंटरेक्शन ही का नतीजा है। आप जब मुश्किलात में पड़ेंगे और नाकामी का सामना करेंगे, तो आपको थोड़ा सा रिजॉल्व रखना है, हिम्मत नहीं हारनी, और आप उसको अपनी स्ट्रेटजी चेंज करके अपने अंदर बेहतरी लाके उसको दोबारा अटेम्प्ट करने की कोशिश करें। फिर हमारे पास किताबें हैं, नॉलेज है, हम वहां से देख सकते हैं दुनिया क्या कह रही है, कैसे करना चाहिए। इन चीजों को यहाँ से इनके नोट्स बनाएं, लिखें इन चीजों को अपनी डायरी के अंदर कि यार ये ऐसे करना चाहिए, फिर उसी तरीके से करने की कोशिश करें। आई कैन अश्योर यू कि बहुत ज्यादा फर्क पड़ेगा। मतलब आप जो इधर उधर की टकरे मारते रहते हैं, कोई बात पढ़ते नहीं है, सुनते नहीं है, और अपनी मर्जी करते हैं, काम गलत कर देते हैं, उससे बेहतर ये नहीं है कि किसी एस्टेब्लिश्ड तरीके से काम करने की कोशिश की जाए। दूसरी बात यह है कि मैं आप ये समझता हूं कि दुश्मनियां जितनी बना लें बन जाती हैं, लेकिन दुश्मनियों को दोस्ती में कन्वर्ट करना ये आपका पर्सनल स्किल है। किस तरह से आप मतलब देखें ना, आप सिनर्जी क्रिएट करें। आप समझते हैं कि एक आदमी है, मिसाल के तौर पे वो आपकी इक्वल कैपेबिलिटी का आदमी है, और वो आपसे जलता है
हम्म,
कि यार ये मेरी जितनी चीजें जानता है तो ये मेरे से बेहतर ना कर ले। आप जाएं उसको दोस्त बना लें, उसके साथ सिनर्जी क्रिएट करें, उसे कहें कि जी मिलके एक काम करते हैं, और उसमें देखो हम दोनों मिलके क्या जबरदस्त करेंगे। एक दूसरे के खिलाफ खड़े होकर लड़ने से जीरो रिजल्ट आएगा दोनों तरफ से। अगर हम दोनों मिलके करेंगे तो एक और एक 11 हो जाएंगे। इस तरह की इन्वायरमेंट में देखना पड़ेगा आपको, तब आपको सोल्यूशन मिलेगा।
बिल्कुल सही। थैंक यू सो मच।
मोस्ट वेलकम। हाँ जी, और कौन है जी? वकास, क्या ख्याल है आपका? नवीद अख्तर। जी वकास बोलिए। वकास आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी, बोलिएगा। नहीं आ रही आवाज। चैट में लिखें जरा क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं आप। हाँ
हेलो।
आगे 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 बोले बोले।
हाँ भाई। हाँ भैया।
जी आई जी
अच्छा,
गो
जो
ऑन।
आपने अभी रिप्लाई दिया इनको, आबिद साहब को, बड़ा अच्छा रिप्लाई है, और मैंने खुद भी इसका एक्सपीरियंस किया है। कि जब आप मिस्टेक्स अपनी, जो है ना, हम लोग मेजोरिटी लोग यही करते हैं कि अपनी मिस्टेक्स से सीखते नहीं है,
जी हाँ,
दूसरों पर डाल देते हैं कि उसने ऐसा किया, इसने ऐसा किया। तो अपना जो है हम लोग नहीं एनालिसिस करते, पोस्टमार्टम नहीं करते अपना। तो
बिल्कुल।
अभी जैसे मेरा भी अभी एक प्रोजेक्ट, क्योंकि मैं ऑयल एंड गैस के प्रोजेक्ट से बिलोंग करता हूँ, पीपीसी कंस्ट्रक्शन से।
हम्म।
तो हमारा क्योंकि बहुत ज्यादा मैन पावर का भी है, और इस तरह के स्टेक होल्डर्स बहुत ज्यादा होते हैं हमारे। तो उसमें ये कि मैंने जब अब मेरे जो अभी प्रोजेक्ट कर रहा हूँ, उसमें मैंने अपनी काफी मिस्टेक से सीखा कि मैंने यहाँ मिस्टेक कर दी, मैंने वहाँ मिस्टेक की। तो इस तरह जैसे अभी ये मेरा असल में ये जो बुक आपकी इसको सिर्फ इसलिए मैं इंटरेस्ट ले रहा था कि पॉलिटिक्स, इसमें और चीजें मैं क्या सीख सकता हूँ कि पॉलिटिक्स का अगर मैं शिकार हुआ इस प्रोजेक्ट में, तो मैं हाउ आई कैन इम्प्रूव मोर माई सेल्फ।
यार देखिए,
तो
मैं
गुड इनिशिएटिव।
मैं जनरली ये सजेस्ट करता हूँ कि पॉलिटिक्स की नेगेटिव कनोटेशन ना लें, पॉलिटिक्स को पॉजिटिवली इस्तेमाल करने की कोशिश करें। आपको उससे ज्यादा, जैसे मैंने सिनर्जी की एग्जांपल दी, तो बेइंतहा फायदा हो सकता है आप। जी नवीद। نوید اختر.
ہلو.
جی نا بولیے.
جی السلام علیکم سہیل
یا.
صاحب. سوری میں 2-3 بار ٹرائی کرنے کی کوشش کر رہا تھا, میرا مائک سم ہاؤ جو کام نہیں کر رہا تھا.
ہاں
تو سب سے پہلے تو میں اپریشیٹ کرنا چاہتا ہوں آپ کا جو یہ انیشیٹو ہے بک نریشن کا, یہ ماشاء اللہ سے بہت اچھا ہے. اور ٹاپک بہت انٹرسٹنگ ہے, پالیٹکس ان پروجیکٹ مینجمنٹ. انیشلی جب میں پروجیکٹ مینجمنٹ کے بارے میں پڑھ رہا تھا تو ایک پیج پہ میں نظر پڑی تھی ایتھکس آف پروجیکٹ مینجمنٹ, جس میں کہا جاتا تھا یو ہیو ٹو بی کلیئر, یو ہیو ٹو بی فیئر, because that's why you are actually you found to be legitimate, right?
بالکل.
But politics somehow مطلب میرے مائنڈ میں جب بھی پالیٹکس آ جاتا ہم کہتے ہیں جی کوئی ڈرٹی مائنڈ بات ہونے جا رہی ہے.
ٹھیک ہے.
تو تھوڑا سا مطلب میں اسی چیز کو لنک کرنا چاہ رہا تھا کہ جب ہم پی ایم پی کی بات کرتے ہیں اینڈ بینگ پی ایم پی سرٹیفائڈ, اور ہمیں فیئر ہونا چاہیے ہر چیز میں, اور دوسری طرف ہم پالیٹکس کی بات کر رہے ہیں. تو مطلب
سر پالیٹکس کی میں نے ابھی ایک بات کہی, میں نے کہا نیگیٹو کنوٹیشن اس کی نہ لیں. ایتھکس میں رہتے ہوئے بھی پالیٹکس ہو سکتی ہے. مثال کے طور پر میں آپ کو ایک بڑی سمپل سی ایگزامپل دیتا ہوں. آپ اگر ایک بیوقوف پروجیکٹ مینیجر ہیں تو آپ غلط وقت پہ غلط بات کریں گے ہمیشہ. آپ کو ایک پرمیشن چاہیے اپنے باس سے, اور آپ کو وہ چیز چاہیے, وہ جب بالکل بزی ہے اور کسی اس سے بھی زیادہ امپورٹنٹ کام میں لگا ہے, آپ جا کے اسے انگلی کرنا شروع کر دیں کہ سر پلیز سر پہلے میرا مسئلہ سن لینا. میں وہ کہے گا جا دفعہ یار کیا مصیبت پڑ گئی ہے. اب بات یہ کہ سینسٹیوٹی نہیں ہے. دیکھیں آپ کو عقل کرنی ہے, اس کی طبیعت کو سمجھنا ہے, اپروپریٹ وقت کو دیکھنا ہے, تیار ہو کے اس کے پاس جانا ہے, اور اس طرح سے تیار ہو کے جانا ہے کہ آپ اپنا اپروول لے کے ہی واپس آئیں گے, اور ایسے وقت پہ جانا ہے. یہ ہے پالیٹکس. میں وہ جو کمینی قسم کی حرکتیں ہیں ان کو نیگیٹو کنوٹیشن کو تو میں لے ہی نہیں رہا. میں ایتھکس میں رہتے ہوئے عقل مندی کا, دور اندیشی کا ثبوت دیتے ہوئے آپ کس طرح سے اس سے فائدہ اٹھا سکتے ہیں, یہ پالیٹکس کی بات کر رہا ہوں. بات سمجھ آئی گی؟ جی نوید.
جی
اور کچھ کہنا چاہیں گے آپ؟ سر عقیل انور آپ بتائیے, کوئی آپ کی کیا رائے ہے؟
Sir, it is really nice to hear you first time. It was really very forthcoming. میں جس طریقے سے اس کو سمجھا تھا پاور پالیٹکس کا,
جی
تو میرے ذہن میں کچھ تھا, یہ جو آپ کے جو پی 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 پروجیکٹس ہوتے ہیں نا, پرائیویٹ پارٹنرشپس,
جی ہاں
جس کے اندر گورنمنٹ اور سول دونوں بیچ میں, اور وہ ایگزیکیوٹ کیے جاتے ہیں, تو کچھ میرے ذہن میں اس قسم کے پروجیکٹس کا سینیریو بن رہا تھا.
بالکل.
لیکن ریئلی جس وقت میں نے آپ کو سنا ہے تو اس سے یہ بھی پتہ چلتا ہے کہ یو شوڈ بی گڈ ان آل دی کوالٹیز, اینڈ اسپیشلی جو ہوتا ہے نا, جو انڈیویجول کی جو انڈرسٹینڈنگ ود دی ریڈنگ آف مائنڈ آف دی ادر پیپل,
بالکل
اس میں بھی یو شوڈ بی کوائٹ ماہر ہونا چاہیے. It was quite informative overall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
بہت اچھا رہا جی آپ لوگوں کے ساتھ سیشن, اور مطلب مزہ بولنے کا تبھی آتا ہے جب اگلے کو سن بھی رہے ہوں, اور مجھے بڑی خوشی ہوئی کہ آج لوگ تو کم ہیں لیکن جتنے بھی ہیں انہوں نے کافی اٹینٹیولی اٹینڈ بھی کیا, اور اگر کچھ نہ کچھ آپ ایک لفظ بھی سیکھ کے جاتے ہیں تو پیسے پورے ہو گئے جی میرے. تو بس دیٹ از اٹ. تھینک یو ویری مچ, اور انشاءاللہ آپ لوگ کنٹینیوسلی آئیں, روز آئیں, اور بڑا مزہ آتا ہے. اس طرح ایک یوں سمجھ لیں کہ آپ ایک کیفے میں بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں اور گپ شپ لگ رہی ہے, اس طرح سے ہم ایک نریشن کر رہے ہیں. تو لیٹس میک اٹ اے ہیبٹ. یہ کتاب میں ختم کروں گا, پھر میں کوئی اور کتاب اٹھا لوں گا, انشاءاللہ ہم کرتے رہیں گے اس طرح سے. تو یو آر ویلکم, آپ لوگ ضرور آئیں, اور انشاءاللہ آگے چلتے ہیں. تھینک یو ویری مچ جی. سیشن ہمارا ٹائم ہو گیا ہے. کل انشاءاللہ میں پھر انتظار کروں گا آپ لوگوں کا. ٹیک کیئر. खुदा हाफिज।